On this episode of Cars with Cory, I'm going to install an Apple CarPlay radio in my 2012 F150. I found it for only 55 bucks, which is an incredible deal. In this video, I'm going to do a detailed version. If you would like a short version, I will link to that shortly. So making its Cars with Cory debut to the channel, this is my newly acquired 2012 F150 XL work truck. It is a short box, long bed, something that I've been looking for a while. It does have the Coyote 5 liter and it is four-wheel drive. So along with those options and power locks, power windows, and a 36-gallon fuel tank, this is something I've been looking for a while. So body's pretty rough, got quite a bit of weight reduction here, but overall runs, drives, does everything I need it to do. Haven't done much with this truck so far. Did have to do a little straightening on the tailgate and the bumper. Not exactly exciting content, so I didn't film that, but truck runs pretty good. Does have the typical Coyote phaser knock, does have an oil leak, and the rear end housing is howling like a coon dog with his berries trapped into a bear trap. So we got some work to do, but naturally the first thing we're going to do is the stereo, because that's lame and that makes a whole lot of sense. So as the standard Ford radio, we're going to go ahead and replace that with an Apple CarPlay unit. So for those of you who have watched any of my previous videos, you know that I do quite a bit of stereo content. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I got really into car stereos, and here later in life I've begun to collect them. So I've got a lot of Alpine, Kenwood, mostly in some Pioneer units here, but been collecting these over the last few years. My original plan was actually to go with something that I've had for years. I have two very high-end Alpine units, a TV screen and a DVD player. I actually had an Explorer many years ago. I had all four of those in, but I've had these for years, and my original plan was to put them in, but I think I'm going to go the Apple CarPlay route instead. So here is the unit. Found this on eBay. These are the type of units that go for around 150 bucks on Amazon or eBay or wherever, but this one claimed never installed, open box, so I got it for 55 bucks out the door. It's been opened, but I went through it. Looks like everything's here. This one integrates directly. It's got the screen and everything, so we're gonna go ahead and put this in. So here we have the standard F150 radio. There is a technology package available on these trucks from 09 to 14 that would have the screen. The aftermarket CarPlay unit and Android Auto unit that I bought is not compatible with the screen type. So only this stereo is the one that I could replace it with. So there's probably some 7mm in here. I got some pry tools in my hand here to pry stuff apart. Let's go ahead and take this thing apart. I haven't done it before, but we're going to figure it out. I'm imagining we're going to start probably down here and get this stuff out of the way. Pry up in the middle here, that'll get it right out. So my truck actually does not have sync or steering wheel controls, just a blank there. So mine's a little different. It's a low option, but for here we just have an auxiliary. So we'll pull this plate out, tab to release here. It's like press down and pull out just like that. So we'll save this guy to install back in the other fascia. Looks like up here, I've had this apart. I've already discovered that underneath this little mat up here, there's a couple of 7mm, so if I can get it to come loose, get it apart. There we go. So just a little pad, and there are two 7mm up top here, so we'll pull those out. So once we have the lower aux in and the mat off the top, there's actually a 7mm down here, and there are two up here, so we'll go ahead and pull them out. So next, I think we have to get each of the side pieces off. I believe this is kind of slipped underneath of there, so we're going to go ahead and try to pry these out. I'm just going to grab in the pockets here since I have them and see if we can get it to release, perhaps. And I've learned over the years it's okay to be rough with these, but you got to pull in the right direction and you got to do it quickly. So once I get it loosened up, I'm gonna yank it straight out with a good grip. So they come loose. A little harder for me to grip this one with the camera in the way, but essentially you just want to grab these and pull straight out, just like that. This one will pry the bottom here. Alright guys, the camera was in the way. I had to get a pry tool and kind of pry out on the bottom here to get it loose. So from this point, you should be able to grab the top of this stereo heat control unit and just yank it straight out. Alright. There's not a lot of room on this right side, but we should be able to just sneak that just barely out of there. There we go. And it's loose. So there, it's loose. Connectors on the back. I'm gonna disconnect this top one at least. Then I'll kind of show you behind there what's behind there. So we got quite a few connectors here. This guy right here just went up to the hazard and traction controls. Then we have several other connectors down there, one over on the side here. So I'll get all those connected and we'll go on to the next step. So there's another connector that kind of hangs it up, connects over here on the side of the radio, right down here. So once you get the top connector for the hazards and traction control and this connector over here on the far passenger side, right down there, it'll kind of fall down. That'll leave two connectors in the radio and the one for the cigarette lighter socket. So on the lighter, you will need a small screwdriver or pick tool to push in on the detent to release that. This one doesn't just come out by hand, or at least mine won't. Feels like it's going to break, so I'm going to use a screwdriver to help release that. Alright, so once that's disconnected, we have the stereo unit free. Set that off to the side. Next step is the actual brain unit for the stereo that contains a CD player. At this point, if you forgot to take out your CD, which I did not, you might want to hook this back up and eject your CD from the CD player and start all over again. So we'll go ahead and pull these four out along with the connector connected to the back of it. Alright, so on the back here we've got two big connectors and the antenna. So these just have push buttons to pull out, so push the button down, yank them out, and pull out the antenna. Alright, once those are free, we'll take the stereo unit, set it off to the side. So at this point, I know the display unit can stay in there, it won't work anymore, but I noticed we will definitely have to take out this plastic shelf here. I see two 7s in here, and I believe there are more up underneath each side. Yep, you can see one right in there. This one I think I can get to pretty easily. I'm gonna have to get creative with this side. I could probably take the airbag out, but I don't really want to, full disclosure. So I'm gonna see if I can sneak a tool back in there and get that one out. Up to you guys. To be honest with you, if it doesn't come out, I'm just gonna break it because the stereo's never going back in here. Well guys, I got it out. I had to hold a pry bar and get a 1/4 inch with a swivel on the end in there. I was able to get it out. I didn't really want to break it, but that's up to you guys. For me, like I said, it was never going back in, but I had it most of the way and I just wouldn't give up. So know that that guy up there is going to be a real pain, but you can in fact get it out. So from there, since the left side has quite a bit more wiggle room, there we go, and the piece just basically comes right out. I do know that for this stereo, this connector will not, I don't believe it'll reach, so it does need to go behind the dash and come out the other side. We're going to go ahead and pry this down and sneak that connector down through there. All right, yeah, see, now we've got plenty of room to connect this. This is for the traction control and the hazard lights, so it needs to be down here underneath the screen. Back outside the truck, we're going to need to remove the heat and air conditioning controls, the cigarette lighter, and move those over to the stereo. So we have some, I believe, T15s. The cigarette lighter has a couple of push pins, one here, one on the other side. So I'm going to set you guys up on the tripod and we'll move those over. So the last step will be to prep the new unit, will be to remove the locking clips from the factory head unit. So just basically move them from one right over the other. So the best way I've discovered to do this, take pliers or a needle nose and get a hold of them, and then just kind of angle them up. So you can probably see there's a gap on this one side. And then I just took a pick tool, angled pick tool, and I can't do this one-handed, but I get it underneath of there and kind of pry it up. Take your open hand and put over top. Don't stab yourself, but that way you catch it because they'll tend to fly across the room. So we'll go ahead and get all 6 of these off of the factory head unit installed. I'm also going to put some tape around this center connector. Mine's really, really loose. I don't know if that's characteristic of all of them, but I'm just going to run some very wide black electrical tape around the base here. Just tighten that up a little bit so it's not jiggling around and rattling when we're flying up and down the road. So that helped already. It's not super firm, but it'll stop it from rattling. Okay, we've got the heat and air conditioning controls in, the traction control, and the hazard button in. Take note that this comes out the front and goes back in the front. The other one bolts from the underside, obviously. I am not going to put in the cigarette lighter. It fits incredibly tight. I certainly could put it in. I was going to for the purposes of demonstration, but I'm not going to today. Back ordered is the receptacle that will connect directly to this unit, so I can connect via USB rather than wireless if I choose to, plus charge my phone at the same time. So here are all the harnesses that came included in my unit. We have the GPS antenna. When we get back in the car, we're going to mount that. That will connect right here to the GPS antenna port. We do have an external microphone included since mine's a non-sync vehicle. I am going to include that. That's going to plug into a later harness, which is an output harness here. We'll come back to that, but that does have a kind of an auxiliary in type input for the antenna. Comes with 2 USB ins. I'm not going to use both. I'm just going to use one, so that one's going to go back in the box, but this one does connect. It's a 6-pin. Probably won't focus, but all of these harnesses, with the exception of the main harness here, they only plug in one spot, so you can't really mess them up. But I believe what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that in, and then I'm just going to run it down through the hole and just let it hang there until I get the receptacle that's on back order. So also included, antenna adapter. Ford has a unique antenna. So when we get in the truck, I'm going to tape up the end that connects to the car here so it doesn't come apart. But antenna connects right here on the back of the unit there, presses in, and then you connect it to the car there. So from there, we have a main harness. This will plug into the car in all of its spots. Everything we unplugged from the stereo, so the back of the radio, and then the big one in the back of the radio, and then the 2 smaller ones in the back of the actual CD player box in the back. So mine came with what I assume anyway is 2 connectors. These are, I think, 12. I don't know. They're the big multi-pins. They're the 2 largest. They have the same connector, but one has more functions than the other one. I think this is for, I'm assuming anyway, this is for a basic install, and the one with more plugs is for a more complex install. Because I'm adding the external microphone, I'm gonna have to use the more complex one and throw this one back in the box. So, and then last but not least, the backup camera. My truck doesn't have a backup camera. I'm not gonna do this today. I don't really like the cheap one that mounts here, and then I have to mount it by the tailgate or the license plate. I think what I'd rather do is get either a factory Ford logo that has the camera in it, or try something different, perhaps a license plate one, but this is not going in today. So back in the truck, up on the dash, I removed the mat, and there are two 7mm here. We're gonna go ahead and remove the tray here, if I can grab it. Actually, you have to pull out the front, that's right, and then kind of shimmy this. There goes the screw. Well, we'll find that never. But anyway, that will open this up to put in the GPS antenna. That's going to need line of sight to the sky. So got this open. This truck does not have automatic headlights, so there's my screw. Let me grab that quick before it falls in there. Got him. Nope, that's a different screw. There it is. Anyway, truck did not come with automatic headlights. Twilight Sentinel, I think is what it's called. Anyway, I know it can be done on this truck. You can change the switch, put in the sensor, you have to go into 4Scan. I'm never going to do that, so I'm going to recycle this hole. I'm going to basically pull the connector out of here, and I'm going to run the wire up through there and cover the hole with the actual antenna. Alright, got the antenna in, just like I said, pulled out the factory darkness sensor, stuck it down, ran the wire in behind, and out we have the antenna for the GPS. Now that we've got the GPS antenna wire placed, I've also went ahead and dropped the microphone wire while I'm in here. I just have it hanging down here for now. I'm going to run that underneath the dash, button it up nicely, and then I'm going to put it up here on the A pillar right about there. So I've also dropped a set of RCAs and a remote wire here. I may add a subwoofer to this at some point. Not today, obviously, but I want to have all those connections made before I put everything back in the dash. Alright everyone, we're in the home stretch. So, as mentioned before, I'm going to run out of the lighter hole down here just a loose USB. Like I said, I got a receptacle coming. I'll just plug that in and shove it back in the hole when that comes. For my application, I only need this large harness here. It has the RCA pre-outs for the aforementioned RCAs for subwoofer. It also has the input for the microphone, so that's all I'm going to be plugging in. There is spots here for this spot here on the far right is for the backup camera. We have USB, another USB, and this is where the harness for the CAN bus comes off the other harness, plugs in. So the other one's plugged into the vehicle already. We'll go over that quick here. So I went ahead and plugged in the main harness. So we got two gray ones here. The harness actually has three. It has a third one here that has a set of RCAs coming off of it. I do not have premium sound or an amplifier, so there's no plug in my truck for this one. So we're going to leave this one hanging loose. So obviously we have the CAN bus here in and out. That's part of the main harness. And then we have the black connector that goes to the stereo itself. So this is the CAN bus connector on the back of the unit that I just mentioned a moment ago. So we got everything ready here. We have our two heat and air conditioning controls plugs down here. We'll plug those into the bottom. And then of course we have our traction control and hazard light plug in here. Now I tested, there are a ton of loose blue wires on this harness, and I didn't find a single one that has a 12-volt output for an amplifier. So I actually ended up, there's a blue wire in the connector for up top here for the traction control and the hazard lights that has switched power. So I'm going to use that for my remote wire. I assume that I tested it, it should work out. So another finding here, there's another plug, comes out of the truck. This guy's not used, so this one connected to the side of the stereo unit up top here, the factory one. So this one I'm just going to shove back in the hole. We're not going to use that one. So along with that, there's one additional one I missed down below. This guy plugs into the aux in for the 3.5 millimeters. So it's really difficult for me to try to hold the camera and plug all these in. I'm going to go ahead and plug them in, and if I can get a view, I'll show you guys. But I went over kind of everything here. You know, critically for me, I have to remember, you know, the GPS antenna, the hands-free microphone, which is here. I've already got the adapter for the actual car antenna that is taped on, as I mentioned, so it doesn't come loose. So just make sure you get all of these plugs. Look over it 2 or 3 times before you shove it back in. Make sure everything's plugged in. Alright, as you guys saw me on the struggle bus there, I showed you as much as I could. These harnesses are super short, so like I said, I tried to do a good overview before we started. My best advice is just, you know, take your time, make sure you've covered everything and got everything plugged in, and plug them in longest to shortest. The one for this guy is a real bear because you got to hold it up and try to plug it in at the same time. You got to do it blind because you can't see behind there. So I just kind of got it propped up. A little word to the wise. Once everything's plugged in, test it. Don't just put it back in the dash. I'm pretty confident in my ability most of the time, but every once in a while things don't happen. This is also advertised as an open box, never installed unit. I saw some evidence of it being installed, but regardless, I don't even know if this thing works. So I took a chance on it on eBay. Let's see if it fires up. And it does. So I'm going to go ahead and install it into the dash now. We've got to be mindful there are hooks on both sides. So this side over here is going to be a bear to get in there. I've already kind of got it hanging by this side, but one other thing to note too, make sure your harness or harnesses are accessible down here for your sync, your aux in and your USB for sync. I don't have the USB, but regardless, make sure those are accessible before you go ahead and install in the dash. So I'll try to prop you guys up here and you can watch me struggle to get it in here, but looks like everything's working, so it's at least firing up. So let's go ahead and slap it in the dash. Alright, I got you guys propped up over on the seat, very sketchy like, so we're going to go ahead and put this thing in the dash here. Alright, and the last piece will be your sync connector. You may have one or two here as mentioned. I just have one, so this guy, I remember, was a bear to get out, so we got to go one side and then the other. Actually, that wasn't too bad. So okay, so we got everything fired up, everything's working. Did get CarPlay connected. That was super easy. There's a app on here for that just connects it, and it connects to the Wi-Fi on your phone. I'm not an Android person anymore, so I can't speak to the Android Auto, but I'm sure it works. It's all wireless. As I was flipping through the screens here, I did find there's a setting for external power amplifier enable, and the checkbox is not checked. So it's possible that one of those wires would have worked, but anyway, I've gone around it now. So kind of neat. You can check out YouTube, check out Cars with Cory on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe if you like this, and I've got a lot of other content too, but lots of neat features here. Sounds amazing. I'd put some music on for everyone, but unfortunately copywriting laws will catch me right away. So anyway, everything seems to be working. The lights automatically dim. It takes a second, but it'll go with shade down. I think it already did. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the screen, but kind of neat. It really is a plug and play thing. It looks real good in the dash, and for $55, I really can't complain. Thanks for watching this episode of Cars with Cory, where we put Apple CarPlay in my 2012 F150. Did it real cheap, found that unit for 55 bucks, took a chance, and it worked out in my favor. Got everything plugged in and it worked just fine. So we'll be heading down the road hands-free and have extra functionality in this old truck. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this truck needs a few repairs, and as you can probably see behind me, we got a new axle for next time, so stay tuned.